Hello everybody, welcome to the results video for Season 2, Round 1 of Competition Autobeam, hosted by our resident Florida man, LS Swapped RX-7, and voiceover by your resident Corolla driver, me. For this round, we went all the way back to the earliest year possible in automation, 1946, and the world's default country of the United States of America. Soldiers are coming back from fighting the Nazis in Imperial Japan in World War II, only to discover that job opportunities were scarce and the economic outlook was incredibly bleak. So many turned to a life of crime, transporting moonshine much like the bootleggers of the Prohibition era did. Prohibition was long over by the 1940s, but illicit, tax-evading moonshine operations continued to prevail throughout the decade, and drivers kept running shine. Many people may not know this, but stock car racing in the United States, including NASCAR, had its roots in the moonshine runners of the 1930s and 1940s. Moonshiners tend to be among the best drivers around, and the cars they chose had a combination of powerful engines for their time, lower weight for improved handling, and increased cargo capacity. After the war, races featuring the same cars and drivers associated with rum running were held across the southern and Appalachian United States on both public street courses as well as dirt roads. It was not unusual for a driver and car to gradually transition from actually running moonshine towards the races taking up most of their time. People in the 1940s were willing to pay money to watch these drivers show off their elite skills, using cars like Ford Deluxes and Chevrolet utility sedans that were extremely commonplace during the era. And so, a new form of motorsports and stock car racing was born from this. For this round, the goal was to make the most realistic and down-to-earth moonshine running vehicle possible. For our aesthetics brief, we encouraged rather plain and pedestrian looks so as to stay under the radar, higher cargo capacity and ride height so as to fit as much moonshine as physically possible and transport it through rough and unpaved roads, and styling features which took inspiration from utilitarian and low-cost sedans, wagons, and even trucks from the 1940s, such as the Ford Deluxe, Chevrolet Fleetline, and Plymouth Deluxe. Now, without further ado, let's get to the competitors. The Mercer Dynamite Very Inconspicuous Moonshine Mover is one hell of a name for one hell of a car. This simple but sleek two-door sedan is inspired by Ford Deluxe and may not have done well in the aesthetic vote, but I personally felt that LS pulled off the Moonshine Runner aesthetic near perfectly. What it lacked in terms of crowd-pleasing aesthetics and its substandard lap time more than made up for with its brilliant engineering grabbing the top spot. I saw that high reliability and low service costs really helped its case here. A low revving pushrod inline 6 contributed to this. However, it also had the worst acceleration of the bunch, which contributed to its mediocre lap time. The Asher 4144 is a delightful red station wagon with classic yet timeless looks, and this showed in the aesthetics vote, taking home first place. Well done, Crimmy. It also gets second in lap time thanks to its two-barrel carburetor, providing the most horsepower out of any of the cars here, but at the same time having the highest practicality, which contributes into its third place finish in engineering. Overall, a very strong finish for the German-Icelandic team of Comet. Here's my very own entry to this round, the McNamara Hustler Custom. Built entirely out of resized 3D fixtures with original body being transparent, I did put quite a lot of time into this half-Cord, half-Ford Pilot, and I can say that I'm disappointed with the second place I received in the aesthetics vote. I will concede that I looked a bit outdated for the 40s, though. However, I was let down by the worst engineering score out of all the contestants. The Hustler had the highest price and service costs and worst fuel economy out of the bunch. I blame having the only V8 engine and 3-speed manual in the round because America. Aside from this, it also had the worst utility and off-road, so maybe not an ideal rum-running vehicle, despite looking the part. The Vodrum 1946, made by S2R1, seems to be a pretty bog-standard car for this round. It's a rather plain-looking two-door sedan powered by a pushrod inline 6. I find the choice of solid front axles to be interesting and perhaps a bit behind the time, but hey, if it works, it works. Other than that, there aren't too many stats that stand out on this car, with the exception of the long wheelbase contributing to the highest weight among the comp cars, and thus the lowest sportiness. Where the Vajram shines, however, is with the off-road score being the highest of the pack. Maybe I shouldn't have slept on those solid front axles, but anyway, a solid entry from a relatively new team. The Transom Phoenix was the only van entered into this round. It's quite an interesting combination of engineering choices, being the only overhead cam engine and a boxer 6 at that. This combined with the fairly high cam profile gave it a staggering red line of 6,000 RPM, very advanced for the 1940s. A twin barrel carburetor and performance intake might not be the best for service cost and reliability, but they did help this van rocket to 100 kilometers per hour in just under 11 seconds, the fastest of the group. Cornering is also excellent, and this shows in this van having the highest sportiness of the group. The sporty suspension tune, however, meant that the comfort and drivability suffered, being the worst of the bunch. The Phoenix is quite quick, taking home third place in lap time, but is not a looker in the slightest, with its aesthetic scores being dismal. The Maxige Mule 2.7 Boxer is quite an interesting entry into this round. As its name implies, it does have a Boxer 6 engine, which would have been quite unusual for this type of car. Maybe our friends over at Racing Republic stole some engineers from Tucker. Also, this car is unusual as it's not really a car, but what appears to be a classic Ford-inspired pickup truck. The classic and utilitarian look seems to have resonated with voters, who helped this youth grab a third-place finish in aesthetics. However, where this German-Hungarian team's entry really shined is in the vroom vroom department, seeing as the truck was the fastest out of any contestant and had the second best engineering score, despite the worst reliability of the group, owing to its class-leading comfort, drivability, fuel economy, and service costs. Well done, CSIG and LMAC. As we already mentioned in the Discord server, Krumi and Carlo K of Comet took home the crown in style, followed by me and Furious Fox with Alan's Autotopia, with third place going to Racing Republic and CSIG and LMAC. In terms of engineering, L-Swapped RX-7's one-man wrecking ball of Base Works is our champion, followed by Racing Republic and Comet. In lap time, Racing Republic's dominance from last season continues, with second and third going to Comet and Harmless, respectively. So overall, I felt this was a really fun round with some great entries. I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with next round with your best Mark I Ford Escort impressions, as this round's theme is 1960s sport compacts. Until then, see you next time.